G'day folks, Sapper here with another World of Warships video. Welcome to Bluff, or Bottom Line Up Front, a series where I review ships but give you the need to know first thing and the in-depth meat further on. Think of it as a ship review video but with a TLDR and ratings for noobs and skills at the end. The Grand Old Lady. HMS Warspite is one of the oldest premiums in the game and a ship with a long and decorated history. New players can even score one for free using an invite code once they've played a battle at Tier 6. Warspite has a solid reputation, but how much of that reputation is still true? How does Warspite perform in 2022? With that in mind, here is my review of the Tier 6 Royal Navy battleship, Warspite. The bluff for Warspite is that she is the embodiment of a main gun battleship with highly accurate, punchy guns that overmatch all her enemies except for Tier 8 battleships and a few Tier 8 cruisers. In all other regards, when compared to her peers, Warspite is respectable but not notable. The result of these traits is that if players can effectively use Warspite's guns, she is a beast, but if not, players will find her an average ship to play. Subsequently, for World of Warships initiates, Warspite is an excellent ship to learn how to aim with, and for adepts is among the strongest Tier 6 battleships in the game. The Grand Old Lady is still grand in 2022 and is a solid addition to any player's fleet. Before I get into the juicy details, don't forget to hit the subscribe and notification buttons if you want to see more of my content. HMS Warspite was commissioned in March 1915 and decommissioned in February 1945. Thanks to a refit carried out between 1934 and 1937, she was very active during World War II despite her age. In her career she received a total of 15 battle honours, and forgive any pronunciation errors. Jutland 1916, Narvik, Norway and Calabria in 1940. Mediterranean in 1940, 1941 and 1943. Malta convoys, Matapan and Crete in 1941. Sicily and Salerno in 1943 and English Channel, Normandy, Biscay and Walcheren in 1944. To this day, she has been awarded the most battle honours of any Royal Navy ship in history and earned the nickname of the Grand Old Lady thanks to some remarks by Admiral Sir Andrew Cunningham while she was his flagship. Warspite is one of my favourite ships in the game and in my view is an example of excellent ship design. A ship that beginners can learn with, but one that scales well with player skill. Warspite's hull is nothing special with the standard 26mm armour everywhere, except for a portion of her upper belt with a rear bias which has 152mm and a small portion of 38mm decking. Unfortunately, thanks to the shape of her armour, small flat surfaces and relatively large superstructure, Warspite loves to eat pens from most angles, so even this enhanced upper belt section is little consolation. She couples this with a surface detection of 12.4 km, which is pretty good for Tier 6. Her air detection of 8.2 km is average for Tier, but pretty standard for battleships in general. Warspite has an average health pool for a Tier 6 battleship with 53,800 and an average torpedo damage reduction of 22%. Where she does get interesting from a survival perspective is a slightly improved heal and a cruiser damage control party. This damage control party means that it only lasts for 5 seconds, but has a 60-second cooldown rather than the usual 80 seconds on most battleships. This means that it works well with her concealment, where you can go dark, use it, and delay your next salvo, and it's up and ready to go again for the following one. Warspite has average AA for Tier, nothing notable. And subsequently she needs to be very careful against Tier 8 aircraft carriers. But she compensates this with a tight turning circle of 550 metres that is reminiscent of low-tier dreadnoughts. Warspite maxes out at 24.7 knots with speed flag and has a 14.2 second rudder shift standard, which is average for Tier. What this all means is that if you're active with your rudder early, you can make some surprisingly tight turns which feel good when you pull them off. To her bread and butter, her guns. Warspite has 8 381mm guns in twin turrets in an ABXY configuration. Her guns are very accurate with 2.0 Sigma and run a slightly improved dispersion formula over the standard formula used by Royal Navy, US Navy, and German Navy battleships. The result is she is consistently accurate at most ranges, although is a little less so than Soviets under 12 kilometers and a little less than the Japanese beyond 15 kilometers. But both of their dispersion formulas bias certain extreme ranges. The only setback to the guns is their limited range of 16.3 kilometers, which is 19.6 kilometers when spotter is up. For the shells on the guns, unlike her Tech Tree sister Queen Elizabeth, Warspite's HE shells are not notable in any manner. But where Queen Liz has short fuse AP, Warspite has normal AP, meaning she finds it much easier to penetrate enemy belts and Citadel enemy battleships, although due to her somewhat floaty shells, the impact angle can be a little frustrating at long ranges. Warspite's turret traverse is average for tier at 45 seconds with Grease the Gears, but many tier 6 battleships suffer from this issue. As long as players properly manage their turrets with Control X or Free Look, it shouldn't be too much of a hassle. So, how do you play her? Warspite is a pretty standard main gun battleship. She wants to stay at range and let her guns do the talking. Warspite, more than others at her tier, really wants to keep that range as she has more accurate guns generally speaking, and she also overmatches most of her matchmaking spread. While she may not be overmatched by all of her opponents, as mentioned earlier, she does like to eat pen damage from AP shells and is not as tanky as many of her peers. Basic level players will want to stay with their team and let Warspite's overmatch and accuracy help them get damage. By staying with the team, they minimise their chances of being focused, targeted by an aircraft carrier, or overtaken by quicker enemies. This ends up being a good thing though, as it helps to teach the basics of positioning, albeit a bit roughly at times. Intermediate and advanced level players will be able to take up more independent positions for crossfire, such as a nearby flank or in a central anchor type position. The trick for all players though is positioning well, staying alive, and keeping Warspite's guns as hot as is safe. When top or middle tier, Warspite can quickly notch up damage thanks to her accurate guns and overmatch. When bottom tier, players will want to stay with the team and leverage Warspite's spotter plane and her concealment to provide fire support for the team. While big carries are unlikely in this scenario, her accurate guns are punchy and can bite even angled heavily armoured opponents by aiming for the superstructure. Warspite's notable enemies are any enemy battleship with 381mm guns or larger, and any tier 8 enemies who completely outclass her 26mm armour, short range and slow speed, but this is a common situation for many tier 6 battleships. Warspite is one of the best tier 6 battleships and is a great pick for tier 6 ranked and can even do decently well against tier 7s in that format. She is also solid at operations thanks to her accuracy, but some other tier 6s will fare better thanks to having more barrels, and Warspite's bigger guns are more likely to overpen against many lightly armoured operations enemies. In randoms, she does as well as any tier 6, but needs to be careful of tier 8s. On to the build. For consumables, Warspite has a strong heal and spotter plane. For upgrades, pick up Main Battery 1, Damcon 1, Aiming Systems, and Damcon 2. On to Captain Skills. I suggest a standard battleship build for Warspite. First, pick up Preventative Maintenance, then Grease the Gears, Basics of Survivability, and Concealment Expert for 10 points. Then Fire Prevention for 14, Emergency Repair Expert for 18, and Adrenaline Rush for 21. You can use Emergency Repair Specialist for your first skill, but I prefer to keep my turrets functional. There is also the option to mix up the order of the picks a little depending on your preference, but I would always get Concealment Expert as your first 4-pointer. You are so reliant on your concealment thanks to your limited gun range. For special captains, Cunningham or the Dunkirk brothers are good choices. Cunningham is preferable due to his special traits, but Dunkirks get buff turret traverse, which is nice to have. The full bottom line is that Warspite is an effective fire support platform thanks to having some of the most consistently accurate battleship guns in the game. These great guns are offset by relatively slow ship speed and average range, and mean that beginners will often find themselves overextended or overrun. In spite of this, or perhaps because of it, Warspite is an excellent battleship trainer for beginners or veterans alike. Accurate battleship guns are simply rewarding to use. Without grandstanding, the Grand Old Lady is still a great battleship in 2022 for players at any skill level or experience. So how does Warspite compare for noobs or skills? Warspite gains points compared to her peers for gun performance, overmatch, and turning circle. She loses points on gun range and speed. So for the scores. Noobometer, 7 out of 10. Basic level players will want to focus on how to land Warspite's floaty shells and how to not overextend, but will find a reliable and strong battleship for most conditions. Skillometer, 8 out of 10. Advanced level players will be able to work with Warspite's great guns to abuse overmatch and game knowledge to have an impact on most matches. My recommendation is to pick up Warspite if you want a solid tier 6 ranked battleship, but if you have Matsu or West Virginia, it may not be necessary as the experience is similar. I have all three, and all three are solid tier 6 battleships. If you prefer faster or more active battleships, I would suggest picking up Repulse instead. Regardless, I love just how solid Warspite is in most ways, and I take her out for a spin periodically. In some ways, I think I may have been a little rough with Warspite in her scores, but the fact is that in the middle tiers, battleships are often reliant on speed and range for performance, and Warspite isn't great on either front. If you're new to the game and Warspite is one of your first premiums, look out for my top 10 things I wish I knew when I was a noob video. It's probably a great place to get some good pointers. Otherwise, next up for Bluff will probably be some other premiums, but I'm thinking something like a higher tier cruiser. So make sure you subscribe and keep an eye out for those videos. If you liked this review, please give it a thumbs up and let me know your thoughts down in the comments. If you didn't like this review or think I missed something, please comment and let me know. If you want to discuss Warspite, upcoming videos, or anything in particular, please join my Discord Dark Lab. Link will be down in the comments. Thanks for watching, stay healthy, and I'll catch you in the next one.